Don't buy another thing from Zara until you hear this, because several Zara items have been officially banned in Europe, and the stories behind those bans are far more shocking than anything you'll see on a price tag. These aren't internet rumors. These are real cases pulled straight out of European safety reports, chemical tests, and consumer protection alerts that never made headlines in the US, but they should have. Zara looks spotless on the outside. Clean stores, perfect lighting, trending pieces dropping faster than you can save them on Pinterest. But behind that polished image are products that slipped through quality checks, failed safety standards, or contained things that had no business being in clothing at all. And when Europe bans something, it's never for fun. Their rules for chemicals, children's wear, fire safety, and labeling are some of the strictest in the world. If an item gets pulled there, it means it crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. That's why these 7 banned products matter. Each one reveals a different problem hidden inside the fast fashion system, from toxic materials to safety hazards to manufacturing shortcuts that regulators caught before shoppers did. Most people have no idea these bans ever happened, and that's exactly why we need to talk about them. So let's start with number 7, the one that shocked parents, blindsided regulators, and exposed an issue Zara hoped no one would ever look too closely at. Number 7, the children's swimwear that failed Europe's chemical tests. Number 7 takes us straight into the one category Zara cannot afford to get wrong: children's clothing. And yet, that's exactly where one of the most unsettling bans came from, because when European regulators tested certain Zara kids' swimsuits and rash guards, they didn't find a design flaw or a loose stitch. They found chemicals that had no business being anywhere near a child's skin. Europe's chemical safety regulations, known as REACH, are some of the strictest in the world. Most brands treat these rules like a brick wall. You don't go near the line, let alone cross it. But during routine inspections, something unexpected happened. Several children's swimwear items from Zara and its sister brands tested positive for restricted dyes and hazardous substances that exceeded allowable limits. These weren't mild issues. These were stop everything, pull the product now issues. The swimwear looked perfectly innocent. Bright colors, fun patterns, trendy cuts that parents buy without a second thought. That's the unsettling part. Unsafe clothing usually looks more appealing, not less. The chemicals regulators found don't change the color, smell, or texture. You can't see them. You can't feel them. They're invisible until a lab test exposes them. And by then, thousands of kids have already worn them to beaches, pools, and summer holidays. And if you know anything about how chemicals react on skin, you know swimwear is the worst place for this to happen. Heat from the sun, friction from movement, chlorine, salt water, all of it makes fabrics more likely to release what's inside them. Regulators acted fast, issuing bans, recalls, and safety notices. Zara removed the items quietly, posted the required notices, and stayed silent everywhere else. But behind the scenes, European consumer agencies were rattled, because these weren't random no-name items picked up at a market stall. These were pieces from one of the biggest fashion brands in the world, a brand that markets itself as polished, responsible, and family-friendly. Parents started checking their kids' drawers. Safety alerts circulated quietly. Headlines never exploded in the US. So American shoppers walked into stores completely unaware that certain children's swimsuits had been banned overseas just months before. And the most unsettling part? The swimwear incident wasn't a one-off accident. It was the first sign that Zara's safety checks weren't as airtight as they appeared, because number 6 takes this from chemical risk to physical danger. And it reveals something even more shocking. Zara's children's clothing has triggered safety bans for reasons you can see with the naked eye, but most of us never notice. Number 6, the kids' clothing with choking and strangulation risks. If number 7 felt like a scientific failure, number 6 feels like something out of a parent's nightmare. Because this time, the problem wasn't hidden inside the fabric. The problem was built into the design itself. European safety agencies flagged multiple Zara children's garments for serious choking and strangulation hazards, resulting in bans across various countries. And unlike the chemical issue, this wasn't about invisible substances under a microscope. This was about strings, cords, decorations, beads, buttons, things anyone can see, but that most shoppers never question. The first banned item was a children's sweatshirt with a long decorative cord placed right around the neck area. Anyone familiar with European guidelines knows that this is a strict no-go zone. Kids run, kids play, kids climb, they pull on things, get caught on playground equipment, grab each other during games. A cord at neck level can turn into a tightening loop in seconds, and regulators treat it as one of the most dangerous design mistakes a brand can make. Then came the worst part. It wasn't just one item. Another Zara Kids garment had tiny detachable charms stitched onto it, adorable, shiny decorations that popped off under minimal force. In lab tests, some detached with just a few gentle tugs. For an adult, that's mildly annoying. For a toddler, that's a choking hazard waiting to happen. Then came the third case. A dress with decorative beads. Another with a small, metallic emblem not secured strongly enough. A hoodie with drawstrings too long for European standards. Individually, each issue might seem small. Together, they pointed toward a pattern regulators don't like to see: inconsistency. European authorities banned the items, published safety alerts, and distributed warnings to retailers. Zara complied, removed the products, and released the bare minimum public statements. But behind closed doors, European regulators grew concerned, because when a major global brand repeatedly violates children's safety standards, it suggests something deeper than a stray mistake. It suggests a gap in oversight. These bans didn't go viral. They didn't trend on social media. They didn't reach American shoppers at all. But Europe saw enough to take action. And here's where things get even more worrying. Number 5 isn't about children's clothing, and it isn't about cords or chemicals. It's about an item adults buy every season, one that Europe banned for reasons most shoppers never imagined. Number 5, the waterproof jackets that broke Europe's chemical rules. Number 5 is where this countdown shifts from children's wear into adult clothing. But the problem gets even more concerning, because this time, Europe banned a series of Zara water-repellent jackets, after discovering they were treated with chemicals so restricted that simply wearing the garment could expose you to substances that regulators have spent years trying to eliminate. Most shoppers hear waterproof or weatherproof and think of convenience, a jacket that keeps you dry, a fabric that beads off the rain. But behind that simple feature is a chemical world most consumers never think about, a world of PFAS, fluorinated coatings, and industrial compounds known as forever chemicals, because they don't break down in the environment or the human body. European safety authorities conducted routine lab tests on several fast fashion outerwear items. What they found in some Zara jackets shocked them. PFAS levels far above what the EU considers acceptable, especially under new environmental safety laws. These jackets weren't lightly treated. They were saturated with substances linked to long-term environmental damage and potential health risks that European regulators have spent years trying to phase out. What makes this unsettling is how harmless these jackets looked. Neutral tones, minimalist cuts, that perfect Zara fall aesthetic vibe. The kind of jacket you'd throw on during a rainy commute without a second thought. But the chemical coating that makes water slide off the fabric also makes regulators step in when those compounds exceed limits. And in this case, they did. Enough for the products to be pulled and banned across multiple markets. H&M, Mango, Bershka, all fast fashion brands have faced scrutiny over PFAS. But Zara's ban stood out because they hit items marketed as practical, stylish, and even eco-friendly. The contradiction wasn't lost on European agencies. How can a brand promote sustainability on one rack while selling jackets coated in substances classified as environmental toxins on another? Zara removed the items, filed the necessary paperwork, promised improvements. But the ban raised a larger question none of the marketing could gloss over. If regulators hadn't tested these jackets, how many customers would have worn them for years without knowing what they were exposed to? And if you think chemicals are bad, wait until you see number 4. Because this next banned item wasn't about hidden compounds or coatings. It was banned for failing at being a shoe. Number 4, the footwear that failed Europe's safety and chemical tests. Number 4 takes us into a category most Zara shoppers rarely question: shoes. Every season, Zara releases boots, heels, sandals, sneakers. Stylish, Instagram-ready designs that sell out fast. But what most customers don't know is that shoes are some of the most heavily regulated consumer items in Europe. There are rules for chemical content, structural stability, stitching strength, heel attachment, metal contamination, even how much a shoe can bend before it becomes unsafe. And Zara has had shoes banned in Europe for failing multiple parts of those tests. One of the most notable cases involved a pair of Zara kids' shoes that tested positive for chromium VC, a highly restricted substance linked to skin irritation and allergic reactions. In leather manufacturing, chromium treatments are normal. But chromium-6 is the wrong kind, the kind that forms when leather isn't processed correctly or when cheap production shortcuts are used. The shoes were banned immediately. Then came the adult shoes. Some failed for containing excessive levels of lead or other heavy metals in the decorative elements. Others failed basic mechanical tests. Straps that tore with minimal force, heels that detached too easily, soles that collapsed inward when bent. These weren't dramatic failures like something exploding. They were subtle weaknesses that only show up under laboratory stress tests. But in shoes, subtle can be dangerous. A heel snapping during normal movement can cause falls. A strap breaking mid-step can twist an ankle. A sole not meeting bending standards can affect posture. European regulators banned the affected items, updated consumer alerts, and quietly placed them into the RAPEX safety database where most shoppers will never look. Zara complied each time and pulled the shoes, but the pattern was hard to ignore. Too many different shoes, too many different issues across too many seasons. And here's the twist. Shoes are supposed to be stable. You can accept a shirt shrinking or a button popping. But footwear needs to be reliable every single step. When a brand fails shoe safety tests multiple times, it signals something deeper. Inconsistencies in manufacturing, rushed production, or cost-cutting in materials that European regulators catch, but customers never see. If shoes can fail this badly, what about items even more complex? Because number 3 takes this countdown into a territory Zara really didn't want to be in. A category where bans don't just mean unsafe. They mean illegal to sell in the EU at all. Number 3. The mislabeled fabrics that violated Europe's textile laws. Number 3 is where this countdown stops being about a single jacket or a faulty shoe and moves into a category that Europe treats with almost zero tolerance: textile labeling violations. It sounds boring at first: labels, fiber content, percentages. But the reason these items were banned is anything but dull. Because when Europe bans clothing for mislabeling, it means the garment isn't just mislabeled, it's misleading the customer about what the fabric actually is. And that's exactly what happened with several Zara and Zara-adjacent garments. European authorities discovered that some pieces marketed as 100% cotton or natural fiber blend weren't even close. Lab tests found significant amounts of synthetic fibers, often polyester or polyamide, woven into the fabric without being declared. In some cases, the blend was so far off that the listed fiber content resembled fiction more than fashion. But here's where it gets more serious. Mislabeling isn't just a consumer protection issue. It's a regulatory breach that can trigger bans across the European Union. Why does Europe care so much? Because customers base their choices on those labels. Cotton breathes differently. Synthetic fibers trap heat. Natural fibers wash differently. Some synthetic blends cause skin irritation. A consumer with allergies could easily buy something safe on paper and end up reacting to a fabric the label claimed wasn't there at all. But the mislabeling wasn't limited to fiber percentages. Regulators also caught items with incorrect country of origin declarations, which is a major red flag. When a label says "made in Spain," but testing and documentation suggest the item came from factories in regions with lower oversight, that's not just a mistake. That's a violation of trust and law. Some garments were banned for failing to include required information altogether: missing labels, incorrect symbols, washing instructions that didn't match the fabric composition, even mislabeled children's clothes, which Europe considers an especially serious offense. Zara pulled the garments, corrected the labels, and moved on. But the bans exposed a much bigger issue: The scale of Zara's production makes absolute consistency almost impossible. When thousands of factories and subcontractors produce millions of items each year, all it takes is one broken step in the chain to send mislabeled clothing into the market. Number 3, revealed. Something subtle but telling. If Zara struggles this much to label clothing accurately, what happens when the stakes are far higher? Because number 2 isn't about labels or fibers. It's about something so serious that certain Zara products weren't just banned. Entire shipments were stopped at European borders. Number 2, the highly flammable garments that failed Europe's fire safety tests. Number 2 is the moment this countdown turns genuinely frightening. Because this time, the item Europe banned wasn't about chemicals, labels, or loose accessories. It was about something far more dangerous: flammability. And when it comes to clothing, flammability isn't a minor issue. It's a matter of seconds. Seconds that determine whether a garment caught near a heat source singes or bursts into flames. European safety agencies tested several Zara garments, particularly items in the nightwear and loungewear categories. And the results were alarming. These pieces didn't just perform poorly in flammability tests. They failed outright, igniting faster than the legal standard allows. Some fabrics burned so quickly that regulators called them unacceptable and unsafe for consumer use, which is about as strong as safety language gets. The most concerning part? These items weren't sold as festival outfits near open flames. They weren't marketed as novelty wear. They were soft, cozy garments people buy for comfort. Pajama sets, lightweight nightdresses, relaxed fit loungewear, the kind of clothing people wear at home, often near kitchens, candles, heaters, fireplaces, gas stoves. Exactly where flammable fabric becomes a real danger. In one case, a Zara nightdress was banned across multiple European countries after laboratory simulations showed that the fabric ignited almost instantly and continued burning aggressively instead of self-extinguishing, which is required under EU law. That ban wasn't subtle. It was immediate. Regulators found another issue too. Some garments were made from fiber blends that looked harmless on paper, but behaved unpredictably when exposed to heat. Synthetic fibers can melt, while natural fibers burn. Combine them in the wrong proportions, and you get a fabric that both ignites quickly and melts onto the skin. The worst possible combination. Europe bans this instantly because the injuries can be severe. Zara pulled the affected items, replaced labels, reformulated blends, and issued compliance statements. But the flammability bans raised unsettling questions. How did these garments pass internal checks? How did they make it through factories, warehouses, and product testing without anyone noticing how dangerously they behaved near fire? And the most shocking part, these weren't isolated pieces. Regulators flagged different garments across different seasons, indicating not a single bad batch, but systemic inconsistency, the exact thing fire safety laws try to prevent. Flammable clothing is one of the most serious consumer hazards because it only takes one accident, one candle, one stove flame, one heater to turn a harmless moment into an emergency. Europe doesn't gamble with that, which is why these items were banned the moment the tests failed. And if this is number 2, then number 1 has to be something truly shocking. The banned Zara item that caused the biggest stir, the fastest action, and the most serious response from European regulators. Number 1. The toxic handbags that tested positive for harmful chemicals. Number 1 is the most shocking banned Zara item of all. Not because it's the most dramatic, but because it's the one customers were least likely to suspect. Handbags. Yes, handbags. The accessory people assume is the safest thing they can buy. No close skin contact, no children tugging on it, no fire risk. Just a stylish addition to an outfit. But several Zara handbags were banned in Europe after authorities discovered they contained dangerously high levels of restricted chemicals, including harmful dyes and heavy metals that should never appear in consumer goods, let alone in something you might carry every single day. One of the most notable cases occurred when European safety agencies tested a synthetic leather Zara handbag and found excessive levels of chromium VI, the same toxic byproduct that triggered a ban on certain Zara shoes. It's a substance linked to allergic reactions, skin burns, and long-term health concerns, and it should not be present in any leather product sold within the EU. But here's the twist. This wasn't even a full leather bag. It was a mixed material piece. The contamination suggested poor processing, low-quality dyeing methods, or a breakdown in supplier quality control. Another banned Zara handbag tested positive for azo dyes, a group of chemicals that can release carcinogenic compounds under certain conditions. Europe strictly regulates azo dyes for this exact reason. If they're detected above safe limits, the product is banned instantly. The handbag in question was pulled from shelves across several EU countries, quietly added to the RAPEX consumer alert system, and removed from the market before the public ever had time to react. And then there were the structural issues. Some Zara handbags were found to have metallic components coated with materials containing excessive nickel, a common allergen that can trigger severe dermatitis. In Europe, nickel release is tightly controlled, especially in products meant to be handled regularly. If an item releases more nickel than allowed, it doesn't matter how stylish the design is, it's banned. What made number one so unnerving was the combination of factors: synthetic materials, cheap dyes, low-cost metal fittings, rushed production, and inconsistent oversight. It created a perfect storm where handbags, the accessory people assume requires the least safety scrutiny, failed multiple European standards. The bans didn't trend on social media. They didn't appear in headlines. They happened quietly, behind the scenes, logged into safety databases that most shoppers never read. But they reveal something important. Zara's massive production system moves so fast and spans so many factories and subcontractors that even the simplest item can go wrong in ways customers could never predict. And that's why these bans matter. And there you have it. 7 Zara items Europe didn't just question, didn't just warn about, but actually banned. 7 products that slipped past the glossy storefronts, the trending displays, the picture-perfect influencer hauls, and made their way into people's homes before regulators stepped in. When you put them all together, the toxic chemicals, the choking hazards, the mislabeled fabrics, the flammable nightwear, the collapsing shoes, the contaminated handbags, a bigger story starts to emerge. It's not just about Zara. It's about what happens when a fashion empire becomes so massive, so fast, and so global that even the smallest oversight can turn into a public safety problem. Fast fashion sells convenience. It sells trends. It sells that feeling of walking out with something new. But behind the scenes, it's also selling risk. Tiny, invisible risks that don't show up in the dressing room mirror. Europe caught these items because Europe has some of the toughest consumer protection systems in the world. But the uncomfortable question lingering in the background is simple. If these items were banned there, how many similar products reached other markets unnoticed? How many made it into shopping bags, closets, and everyday use without anyone realizing something was wrong? That doesn't mean you can never shop Zara again. It means shop with your eyes open. Read labels. Pay attention to recalls. Trust your instincts when something feels cheap, flimsy, overly treated, or suspiciously underpriced. Because big brands don't collapse from a single mistake. They slip when customers stop paying attention. If this opened your eyes even a little, you're exactly the kind of person this channel is made for. We dig into the stories big brands don't talk about, the problems buried in fine print, the things you deserve to know before spending your money. So if you want more deep dives, more exposés, more "hold on, they did what?" moments, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, which of these banned items shocked you the most? Because if Zara had 7, imagine what other brands are hiding.